Well, it's been a warm fall so far for much of the country. What does November and the next couple of weeks have in store? When we take a look at some important things to monitor for winter. So pretty impressive temperature anomalies so far for meteorological fall, September 1st to date. The vast majority of the country and Canada way above normal. In fact, record territory for parts of the upper Midwest, Minnesota and the Dakotas, with just a couple of cool spots along the west coast, but normal temperatures in the southeast, and also notably very dry for the whole central U.S., from Texas all the way up through Minnesota and the northeast, running some big rainfall deficits of several inches behind for meteorological fall since September 1st. So fall moisture is really important to recharging soils. And a thing that influences our weather is the Arctic, and Arctic sea ice is way behind. The orange line is where the ice should be. Basically, much of that area should be filled in between the continents. And while we're not running as low as 2012, which is the record low year, we have caught up to 2012 now. So the minimum of the Arctic sea ice at the end of summer didn't get as low as 2012, but now that ice is forming more slowly and on pace with what we saw in the middle of the fall of 2012. And the Arctic, of course, influences North America's winter. As far as the next 6 to 10 days, that warmth really is going to start to shift more to the east, with cooler temperatures in the west to at least normal temperatures as we head into the 8 to 14 day outlook. And notably, a more active pattern for the central U.S. So one of those blobs of dryness from the Gulf Coast up through Minnesota should see at least some additional rainfall here in the next couple of weeks, which is welcome news. And then heading into November, hard to believe that it would be anything other than another warm month with just how much heat there is in the northern hemisphere. Models, or the official NOAA forecast, is forecasting some near normal temperatures or equal chances in the west. But most of the models are hinting at potential for below normal temperatures for the western part of the U.S. and the warmth continuing in the north central and northeastern part of the country here for the month of November. As far as precipitation goes, the official outlook is a dry pattern for the south, which is pretty typical for La Nina, and wetter in the Pacific Northwest, and then kind of a draw as far as probabilities go for the northern and northeastern states. But looking at the models, the majority of them do have above normal precip in the north central U.S. So again, at least part of that area that has been very dry, the upper Midwest, could see some beneficial rainfall, but the northeast and the south will still be pretty lacking. Another thing we monitor, the polar vortex. Yes, already in the fall, as the Arctic is flung into darkness, you have the stratospheric polar vortex, and then the tropospheric, the lower atmosphere. And the one we really monitor is the stratosphere because it does impact the lower atmosphere. And while it's gotten off to a slow start, we're expecting a pretty normal polar vortex as we head into November. There's been a lot of buzz about, oh, the polar vortex has been weaker than normal so far, and what does that mean for the winter? Well, it is catching up. But we are headed into a La Nina, which in blue shows a higher number of polar vortex disruptions. And when that happens, that can impact the lower atmosphere and unleash cold into the central U.S. and also parts of Eurasia. And over the longer term, since 1980, the polar vortex is getting measurably weaker with more disruptions, and that is probably a result of climate change because we're warming the Arctic more quickly. That weakens the temperature contrast between the Arctic and mid-latitudes, and that leads to a weaker jet stream and a weaker polar vortex or more disruptions to it.